Well, good morning, YouTube. Madam Roy back again. Back to you with another computer-related video for you. This past weekend, I did wind up going to a garage sale. There was only one in the area, but I found some real goodies there, and this is the first thing I want to share with you guys. The gentleman I purchased this from had about 4 or 5 other computers like this. He was asking $5 a piece for them. I only decided to purchase one because I really don't have a use for multiple computers like this. But it's interesting enough that I wanted to at least pick one up because I've never actually used one before. Now, for those of you that haven't guessed already, this is not your normal Hewlett-Packard slimline desktop. This is an HP rp-5000. Now, I wasn't exactly sure what this was until I got home and did some research. Now, these computers, from what I can tell, were only sold to businesses. And what these were designed for were point-of-sale systems. In other words, basically retail management systems. And that's where the RP comes into play. This computer dates from right around 2003, 2004. And I was actually a little surprised, because looking at the case, I assumed it was a little bit more modern than that. I was thinking maybe 2005, 2006. But as you'll see in this video, it is a very well-built computer. First thing, go over the front of the case. You can see it isn't Hewlett-Packard. This is your power button. You have your hard drive indicator and your power indicator there. Have a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive, which I have not tested yet, but I don't see why it shouldn't work. I did replace it. The original drive in this was just a DVD-ROM and a CD reader. I replaced this with a dual-layer DVD burner that I had sitting in the closet, and this drive itself does work very, very well. Now, turning to the side of this computer, you really don't see anything super special. You have a little vent here. I assume that you probably could have had an extra fan installed there if you needed it to be. And you can look through there and you can actually see that's where the CPU cooler vents. So this is actually the vent for the CPU cooler. There is a case fan here in front. I believe that is there to cool the hard drive and the optical drive, because right behind there is where those two items sit. But once you turn to the back, this you can tell is not your average computer. And I will show you why. You do have your standard array of PS2 mouse and keyboard ports. These are 2 standard USB 2.0 ports. Serial port, parallel port. You have your VGA port, just a regular Intel graphics in this. You have another serial port here. This is your 10100 Ethernet port, and your audio out. Now, interestingly enough, this computer does not have any inputs for a microphone or for a line in, so the only audio port you have on this is basically your output for a regular 2.1 speaker system. So again, that goes to show you that this was pretty much designed for a retail management, aka point of sale system. Now, only when you come over here do you notice a big change from your normal computers. We'll get to this in a minute, but I do want to show you that you do have 2 more serial ports. Now, the reason there's so many serial ports on here is back when this computer was made, a lot of the receipt printers and the barcode scanning devices were still using regular serial ports. So you want to have at least an option to hook quite a few of those up. So that alone shows you that this was definitely in a retail establishment. Now, turning over to this. This is something very special indeed. I've never actually seen one of these in a computer. On this side here, you have regular USB ports. As you can see, I'm actually using one with my flash drive right now. It just plugs into here, and I can go ahead and plug that into one of these ports as well, and it works just fine. But the reason these are so special is these are actually powered USB ports. And if you look right here, you can see on this side, you have the special plug for the different voltages. Now, again, the reason being is when this was used in a retail establishment, there were some USB devices that were very power hungry that would require more than the normal 5 volts that a USB port would put out. So in this case, if the device you were hooking up, say it was a scanner, required 12 volts, you would go ahead and plug it into that port. And apparently there were also some 24 volt ports, and you would actually go ahead, if the device required that, you would plug it into there. But one thing I think is really cool is these ports, at least on this side, are just your standard 5 volt USB ports. So theoretically, this computer has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 USB ports for a computer that was actually manufactured around 2003, 2004. It's just very unusual and not something you see every day. Okay, now that I've popped the cover off, you can see some of the components in here. Under here is the socket 478 Pentium 4. It's a 2 gigahertz Pentium 4. Nothing super fast, but once again, because this was just used as a point of sale system, they didn't really need anything super fast. I never really cared much for this fan design. I know that these were prone to have the bearings spin out on them. Luckily, this one seems to be functioning properly. So, knock on plastic, this will stay working for a while. You can see that powered USB card. It looks like it's actually a proprietary slot there. I can't really tell exactly what that is. It may just be a PCI 32-bit slot, but I'm not exactly sure. But as you can see, because this requires so much extra power, you actually have a 5-pin Molex you have to plug in there. So once again, this is something you will not see in anything but a retail PC or business class system. Right here, and I'm not going to take it out because I actually have the computer on right now, you have a daughter board that has a couple of extra 32-bit PCI slots. There are no slots for an AGP graphics card, and of course I would not expect there to be on a computer like this. Now, one thing I found interesting is the way you have to take out the drives. To do anything in front here, you actually have to pull the front cover off. And that's just done by lifting these 3 tabs and basically gently pulling this out of the way. Now, if you want to get to the hard drive, you actually have to pull this entire cage up. And as you can see, the hard drive itself rests right on the bottom of the optical drive, which once again, I kind of found it be an interesting design. The only flaw that I can really tell you with this, even though there is a fan right here to cool off the hard drive, it does tend to get a little bit warm. And I did some benchmarking with a speed fan, and the hard drive gets about 42 to 46 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit hotter than I would like to see it. So in the future, I may do a modification and put in a stronger cooling fan here. That way, I don't have to worry about my hard drive dying on me prematurely. 2 sticks of DDR. It's this PC3200 RAM. Each one is 1 gigabyte, so this system has a total of 2 gigabytes of RAM. I believe that is the max the system can handle. And that's fine, because I'm going to show you in just a minute what I decided to do with this. One thing I thought that was really interesting, as you can see, the power supply does make use of a couple of SATA power connectors. There's one right here, and then there's one right up here. But as I can tell, there is no SATA ports on the motherboard, so apparently this power supply, which is kind of unique, was probably also designed for another version of this system. And as with a lot of these slimline systems, these power supplies tend to be a little bit on the weak side, especially when it comes to caps. I actually was able to pull up some information on this particular computer from the internet, and this is what they said. As you can see, the CPU is the 2 gigahertz Pentium 4. It's got a 400 megahertz data bus. The chipset is the Intel 845GV, which was very commonly used back then, even in home-based systems. I had an old Dell Dimension 2350, I believe, used that exact same chipset. Again, the processor is the socket 478, which is the one right before they went to the LGA 775s. 512K of level 2 cache. cache per processor is 512K, and of course that's just one core in this, so again that's just going to be the 512K. Max RAM supported 2 gigabytes, and the form factor is just the 184 pin DDR. Up here you see that it came stock with 256 megabytes RAM. Now that had been upgraded by its previous owner in this computer. Let's see what else we got here. The interface is just a regular ATA 100 IDE. No SATA ports available in this particular computer. Let's see what we got here. Hard drive that came in there originally would have been a 40 gigabyte 5400 RPM drive, and I believe again they would have done that to keep this running as cool as possible. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here. It does show that it has remote wake up or wake up on LAN capabilities, which I did verify when I went into the BIOS. There's an option to where you can even boot from the Ethernet port in this, which again I'm not surprised, this being a retail system. These are just some of the features. It said USB port control, system password, thermal monitoring, which I find interesting because I cannot find any thermal monitoring in the BIOS, so I think what's actually happened here, somebody's upgraded it to a newer version of the BIOS that originally came on it, and they must have done away with the thermal monitoring because it is nowhere to be found. And one last thing here, again, the Intel Extreme Graphics. It's actually the 845 chipset, so it uses the equivalent graphics. And the sound card in this is the AC97 SoundMax, which is a very capable card, even though it's not a surround sound or a high-definition audio card. It is actually still very capable. So at this point in the video, you're probably asking yourself, Matt, what are you going to do with this computer? Well, as you can see, I have loaded Windows XP on here. It is running Windows XP Professional. It has its own license, which I used on the top of the case, and it activated just fine. And just so you guys know that I'm telling the truth, there are the specs. It is indeed a Pentium 4 2 gigahertz processor with 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now, for a longest time, I've wanted to have a Windows XP computer back. I have a lot of old games that I like to play. One specifically being Frogger, which I can tell you I spent hours and hours playing. This is a fantastic blast from the past, and it has a few levels that are like the retro Frogger that you remember, but it also has a story mode with a 3D version of the Frogger game. So this was a quick review on my HP rp-5000. Expect this to be in future videos for sure. I haven't really decided what I'm actually going to do with this other than playing some games, and I will try to capture some gameplay with this computer. I have not quite finished the installation. I still have to do some updates, install the .NET framework so I can put CD Burner XP Pro on this computer. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.